Welcome to Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, the investigative journalism program where I ask the question, whatever happened to the pizza at McDonald's? I'm your host, Brian Thompson. Last week, I revealed some startling and bizarre details related to a Facebook fan page for the sea called the Mediterranean Sea. I was invited to follow this page by one of my Facebook friends, Ms. Christy Klinko, who I met through her work as someone who writes deranged comments on the official McDonald's Facebook page. While I have always considered myself a fan of said sea, I was bemused to find very little Mediterranean Sea-related content on the Mediterranean Sea Facebook page. Perhaps most unusual of all was the page's listed contact information, which included an address in the borough of Brooklyn in the city of New York, New York, United States, New York. From what I was able to gather via a Google Maps Street View search, the address listed was for a private residence on a shady residential street, not the type of glass and steel modern office complex one would expect to headquarter a Facebook fan page for one of the Earth's preeminent seas. While I assumed this address was simply listed by mistake, I could not help but feel an emotion called curiosity about the residence in question. The whole point of this excursion into the twisted world of Facebook was to learn more about the deranged minds who commented on the official McDonald's Facebook page's post about McDonald's pizza. Perhaps, I thought, the person who lived in this house might know something about Christy Klinko, who I would classify as quite possibly the most prominent of these individuals. Or, since Miss Klinko is a known McDonald's fanatic, perhaps inviting me to like this Mediterranean Sea page was her way of circuitously informing me of a location where I might find out more about my primary area of inquiry, namely, McDonald's pizza and whatever happened to it. However, I was hesitant to visit the address myself, as I do not live in New York, New York, United States, New York, and pending the results of certain scratch-off lottery tickets I have purchased, I do not believe I have the liquid funds to invest in an airline ticket. Also, the private resident of the private residence is entitled to some measure of privacy. Of course, it would be my duty as a journalist to violate this privacy if I were certain the person who lives at this home knew something about why McDonald's stopped serving pizza, but I am not certain of that. When I spoke about this matter on last week's program, I realized that some of the journalists, deputy journalists, journalism enthusiasts, and nosy Nellies who listen to this show and do live in the New York, New York, United States, New York area might take it upon themselves to do some light investigating of their own and knock on the door of this Brooklyn house. For ethical and legal liability reasons, I specifically discouraged anyone from doing so, especially if they also chose to record the expedition for public record. But I am reminded of a story from the book Bible, in which the character Cain survived a fatal squabble with his brother Abel. When the god God questioned Cain about where Abel had gone, Cain replied, quote, "I know not. Am I supposed to keep track of this guy?" Unquote. Though I do not plan to engage in any squabbles with my listeners, fatal or otherwise, I feel similarly to Cain. It is completely outside my power to either start or stop them from invading the privacy of a private citizen, and I do not believe there is a single judge in the entire United States court system who would disagree. So, I feel absolutely no need not to mention that a listener named Jacob Ford visited the address listed in the contact information for the mysterious Mediterranean Sea Facebook page and filed this report.
I just spoke to Moshe, who lives at 775 Westminster Street in New York, New York, United States, New York. Very kind, very open. I was indeed the first Pizza Plea Media subcontractor to speak to her. Brian, I will send you my invoice shortly. This is Jacob Ford reporting from New York, United States, New York, by the way. Moshe was very happy to speak with me, but did ask that I not record only because she is observing the Shabbat. And so I believe for that reason would not like to be recorded on any electronic devices. I asked if she was familiar with the Mediterranean Sea, and she was. In fact, she said she loves the Mediterranean and has been there. However, she is not familiar with a Mediterranean Sea Facebook page, nor did she know why her address might be listed on it. I asked if she suggested that her daughter might have set it up. She said her daughter is very, as it were, tech savvy. I asked if her daughter was named Christy by any chance, and she said she was not. And then asked if Moshe knew anyone named Christy Klinko, and that name was not familiar to her. Let's see. I believe that is all I asked. And then awkwardly said, "Happy Shabbat," as she was closing the door. She then reopened the door and said, "Shabbat Shalom," which I understood to mean that we are on good terms. I'm going to file this report as soon as possible and look for a place to charge my battery. Again, this has been Jacob Ford reporting for Pizza Plea Media from New York, United States, New York. Thank you.
A harrowing report indeed, and, I hope, a touching tale of new friendship. But as I mentioned last week, there is a slightly more mysterious and greatly more disturbing layer to the mystery of the Mediterranean Sea Facebook page's address. I noticed that on the page, said address is clickable. One of the most often used tricks of the journalism trade is clicking on any clickable link. Sometimes this has an adverse impact, as when I clicked on a link in an electronic mail from a rather lascivious woman who claimed to be looking for some romantic partners in my area. This led to an unfortunate situation where a Circuit City store credit card was opened in my name and used to pay for quite a ludicrous number of high-definition televisions. But sometimes clicking a link leads the journalist further down a trail of clues. Such is what happened in this instance. For when I clicked the New York, United States, New York address listed on the Mediterranean Sea Facebook page, it opened a new window with a Google Maps pin located not in New York, United States, New York, but in a stretch of barren wilderness in Harding County, South Dakota. I have never visited the state of South Dakota, but I know something of its history. Several years ago, the entire state was uninhabited. But then, a group of individuals from the continent of Asia traveled through the modern-day Bering Strait and understandably chose not to live on the desolate island of Adak, Alaska. Instead, they traveled down through North America and inhabited the Great Plains. Long story short, South Dakota is now a state within the United States. It may come as a shock to those who have flown over this area in an airplane, but there are even towns there. But the location to which I was directed from the Mediterranean Sea Facebook page is not part of any designated community. This patch of wilderness is mostly flat and barren, though it is ringed by a ring of short hills dotted with similarly short pine trees. According to Google Maps, these are called West Short Pine Hills. There is an ominous-looking gulch nearby called Sawmill Gulch, but strangely, I see no evidence of any sawmill in the area. Some distance away, a small dirt road branching off of Highway 897, which is a larger dirt road, ends at a metal-roofed building with some kind of enclosure attached. From satellite imagery, it is difficult to determine the nature of this facility. Perhaps it is a farmhouse with a pen for livestock, though I see no evidence of livestock within the enclosure. It is also a possibility that this is the home of a madman who has built a pen outside his house to try to keep the grass from escaping. Doing journalism by reading the Harding County, South Dakota Wikipedia page, I could not help but notice the accompanying photograph is of a rather spooky image of a small, dilapidated church standing on a desolate plain beneath gray and cloudy skies. Clearly, this is a house of worship, but worship of what entity I do not know. According to the caption, it is called the Golden Valley Norwegian Lutheran Church, which provides precious few clues as to the nature of its services. Norwegians practice a pagan religion devoted to the thunder god Thor and other characters from Marvel comic books. But does the expatriate congregation of this facility also worship the DC comic book character Lex Luthor? Whatever the case, these Norwegian nerds must comprise a fair percentage of the county's population, which is listed as only 1,311. I hypothesized that perhaps this land plays host to some body of water that is not the Mediterranean Sea, but maybe shares a name with the Mediterranean Sea. This is not unheard of in the United States. The town of Paris, Texas, is named after the great city of France, and the wondrous Indian mausoleum, the Taj Mahal, shares a name with quite a few American gentlemen's clubs. But the Wikipedia page for Harding County lists a list of notable lakes in the region, and it does not include anything called the Mediterranean Sea. It lists only Lake Gardner, Ledger Dam, Rabbit Creek Dam, and Vesey Dam. Of course, dams are walls built to hold back water. This could result in the creation of a lake, but the dam is not a lake itself, which is why listing so many dams under the lake section of this page is, quite frankly, damn peculiar. As my eyes scanned down the page, I found a conspicuously short list of towns, and beneath that, a list of ghost towns. For those ignorant of American history, the 18th and 19th centuries saw many settlers from the eastern part of the country traveling west to settle in the plains. There, huge numbers of these settlers passed away of boredom. This plague became so severe that many towns were completely overrun by the ghosts of the deceased, who flooded the streets looking for absolutely anything to do. Eventually, the living residents were so frightened that they abandoned the towns to the ghosts, who rule over them today. The tragic irony, of course, is that it is impossible for ghosts to entertain themselves, as their non-corporeal hands are incapable of picking up books, throwing baseballs, or operating DVD players. Reading about these ghosts, my flesh rippled with waves of goose pimples, and a thought occurred to me. I had surmised earlier that Christy Klinko may have invited me to like the Mediterranean Sea Facebook page as a method to impart to me the New York, United States, New York address listed therein and for two. But what if the location to which she wished to address my attention was so sensitive that she had to conceal it beneath yet another layer of obfuscation? Namely, a clickable link to a Google Maps pin in the middle of the South Dakota wilderness. Like many who are willing to believe almost anything, I consider myself to be a seeker, and one of the things I have sought is information about a mysterious military base known as Area 51. It is said that in this area, the U.S. government conducts top-secret research into extraterrestrial technology recovered from the scenes of alien car accidents. But when one studies satellite imagery of the Nevada desert where Area 51 is said to exist, one finds mostly barren wilderness. The reason for this is rather simple. If a government agency is interested in keeping track of who is attempting to infiltrate their top-secret facility, it behooves them to build said facility in a place where there is clear, uninterrupted visibility for miles around. Some years ago, there was an online campaign to gather strangers from around the world to the Nevada desert and storm Area 51 on foot. They were such easy targets that almost all of them were instantly shot. All due respect to them, but I am not so foolish. It is clear to me that I must somehow infiltrate this mysterious South Dakota wilderness and determine once and for all whether it does or does not have anything to do with the McDonald's pizza matter. Plus, the telling of the tale will provide quite the proverbial icebreaker for any future interactions with Ms. Christy Klinko. But if I am going to infiltrate this area of South Dakota, I am determined to do so in the most practical and prudent manner possible.
Hello, it's Nick.
Hello, I'm calling about a skydiving question.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Brian Thompson. I'm looking to infiltrate a remote part of South Dakota via skydiving, and I was wondering if that is a service that you would provide, if you would fly me to a remote part of the state and let me skydive out of the plane.
Probably. I mean, it depends on, I guess, where you're going.
Around the South Harding, South Dakota area. It's in the northwestern part of the state.
Yeah, like Harding County.
Yes, there's a remote location that I don't feel comfortable accessing on foot. So I was thinking, have you ever seen the show Man vs. Wild with Bear Grylls?
Yeah.
You know how at the beginning of the episodes of those shows, he sort of skydives into a remote location?
Yeah.
That's sort of what I had in mind. Is that something that you've ever done before?
I mean, not really. I guess it would probably be fairly straightforward. There's probably a lot of risk on your part.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you fuck it up and hurt yourself,
Oh, I see.
they'll come get you.
Hurt myself as far as landing properly and things like that. I've never skydived before. Is it something that I could quickly train myself how to do? Or?
No, that ain't happening. Let me back it up. Is it a possibility? Yeah, it's a couple year probably possibility.
A couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just thought it was just jumping out of the plane and then pulling the string.
Yeah, no. It's a pretty intensive training period, and then once you get your license, you'd probably want to be pretty proficient before you try to jump into a small area.
I see.
Yeah, so basically everywhere up there in Harding County, you either can drive through, or it'd be a really tight LZ landing in.
I see. Well, from looking at the location on Google Maps, it looks like a fairly open wilderness, which is sort of why I'm a little bit scared to infiltrate the area on foot. I have reason to suspect this is a sort of a high security zone, and I'm afraid on foot I will be out in the open and a vulnerable target. So I was hoping to skydive in perhaps under cover of darkness or something like that.
What are you doing when you get there?
I am going to investigate the area and see if I can uncover any suspicious activity. It's sort of a long story as to why I need to go there, but I just have reason to believe that this area has some information that I need. I am an investigative journalist by trade, and so I will be doing some investigating in the area. Yes, I'm looking at it on Google Maps right now, and it is sort of just in the middle of the wilderness. There is a road nearby, but the road ends quite a distance away from the landing site. It looks like in sort of an unincorporated part of the county. There is a cemetery nearby, which could be convenient if there's a fatal accident, I suppose.
To be completely honest with you, I mean, you're probably not where you need to be for us to safely let you out.
Okay.
Skydiving. I'll tell you that I hunt that area pretty regularly, and we walk it every year. So, and I don't think that when you say high security area, it's state land. There's nothing out there.
Oh, okay. What do you hunt, if you don't mind my asking?
Deer.
Oh, deer. Okay. And you haven't seen anything suspicious?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of people hunting. I mean, there's opening day deer season up there. There's a couple hundred people walking that area, I guess. But
I see.
I'm just saying, I don't think you'd have any issue. You're ballsy enough to walk across a hunt lodge section line. You can get in from the bottom. You might have to talk to somebody with a gun, but but I've done it.
Okay.
But for the most part, the highway runs all the way down the side of it, and if you planned a day or two hiking there, you'd be fine. You know what I'm saying? I guess I don't know where you're getting it. It's a high security area because it's all state land.
Well, I like I said, it is sort of a long story why I want to go to this particular area. I just was given access to a rather suspicious Facebook page, and it listed its location as being in New York, United States, New York. And then when you click on the actual location, it opens up this pin in Google Maps in South Dakota, in this area. So I'm just trying to figure out why that is. I'm sure you can understand my curiosity.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, I guess a couple options would be probably the easiest, safest way to do it would be just charter a helicopter.
I do know a helicopter pilot.
That would probably be the easiest, safest if you don't want to walk. But like I said, you could probably walk in and walk out of there in a day.
If I were going to hike over land, would you recommend any sort of precautionary measures to make sure I am not mistaken for a deer and shot by a hunter?
I mean, if you're like between October and December, you might want to wear hunter orange. But
Orange.
no, I mean, yeah.
Okay, well, this is all very good information. Thank you very much for your candor.
Sure.
And do you mind just one more time? I know you answered this before, but you've not seen anything suspicious around there? Anybody talking about the Mediterranean Sea or anything like that?
No. I mean, my buddy grew up just south of Riva there. They owned like 12,000 acres. So they lived there their whole life. But I guess I would say nothing that anybody's mentioned, I guess.
Nothing even supernatural or anything like that? Like a Bigfoot or a ghost or anything like that?
Not that, I mean, usually those stories would, be pretty well known, I guess, if they happen. But
Sure.
And my buddy, like I said, my buddy lives down there, so he would know. He would know if somebody local had anything like that. But.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your help. It's been very eye-opening.
Sure.
Metaphorically speaking. Okay, well, thank you.
Yep.
Goodbye.
All right. Talk to you later.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Have you ever wanted the personal satisfaction of purchasing a piece of priceless fine art without the hassle of owning it or putting it somewhere where it can be appreciated? With Masterworks, you can buy shares in some of the finest art created by creators of fine art content, and watch with your fellow investors as the value of those shares soars. We all love how expensive art is, but who has time to look at it? Unlike stocks, art is guaranteed to increase in value. Better yet, art stocks do not suffer from the deaths of the people in charge. When Steve Jobs passed away from treating his cancer with a sweet potato diet, Apple stocks plummeted. But when the artist Banksy is eventually disappeared by a cabal of interested investors, the value of his little stencils will no doubt triple. Do not be left behind. Invest in shares of fine art today at Masterworks, an online startup guaranteed to be careful with your money, maybe. Do you know what happened to pizza at McDonald's? Do you remember it? Please send all correspondence to pizza@mcdonalds@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at pizza@mcd's, and purchase my best-selling book, How to Be an Investigative Journalist, at howtobeaninvestigativejournalist.com. To support the show, please join my Patreon at patreon.com/pizza@mcd's for exclusive podcasts and other benefits. Thank you to my invaluable Patreon producers: Isabella Zalaskowski, Jacob Ford, Joe Kajik, Kimberly King, Kyle Tarak, Pam Gabriel, Will, Andrew Duffy, Andrew Ahmed Johnson Rubin, Billy Jean, Brad Allen Thompson, David Friedman, Felix Dooley, Jay Poop, Calvin Thomas, Kat Resney, Laurel Paul, Mel, Mitchell Kordick, Opus Mareshi, and Ryan Guggenmoss. I'm Brian Thompson, investigative journalist.